I worked in a very high, toxic, stressful job for 6 years. I couldn't understand what happened and why people had become so hostile, mean, rude, especially to workers. I worked at a desk job, a place where you wouldn't expect somebody to come in and throw their fists at the person or throw temper tantrums. But I dealt with that every day, 8 hours or more a day. I was not a fast food worker. I was not a waitress. I don't think I could be those because you know what? I couldn't take it. The things I've seen, the things I've heard about, the things I've witnessed in those fields, nope. I would not be able to take that kind of stress or mental anxiety that's caused by these people that act like that in public. One of the worst things I experienced, well, actually, there were 3 things that come to mind. One of the worst things was when a woman started throwing fists. That was really bad. No reason for it. Unbelievable, right? And that was my last day. That was my last day there. Because then I realized this has gone far enough. When people start becoming violent, there's no reason for that on planet Earth. There's no reason to do that to somebody else just trying to do their job. And I hadn't even worked with this woman. She just came in. The end of the day, what happened was she had called a business that she thought was mine, but it wasn't. And she arrived at my door when we were closed. We had just closed. We closed at 1 on a Saturday. And she arrived at my door thinking it was the business that she previously called. And when I explained to her that I hadn't talked to her on the phone, she became aggressively violent. When I was in corporate America after the 4th year, I realized something had shifted in the world in general, and I was no longer dealing with the same type of people. You know, growing up in the 70s and 80s is one thing, and then we hit year 2000, and then COVID, and I realized something had literally shifted. And I thought, you know what, there's something going on here, and I wanted to learn more. I had this quest for knowledge. I had a thirst for knowledge. I wanted to know why people had started acting like this. And COVID, could that be to blame? It could be part of it. But it's not to blame 100%. We, as people, make our own choices. We're free to think, feel, so we can't put blame on just one thing. People are angry. People are upset at things. The world has gotten more hostile, and I understand that, but it's never okay to act violent towards somebody at their job for no reason. That person is just trying to make a living. That person is showing up every day just trying to feed their families. They're in the same boat. Everybody's in the same boat, and I realized I wanted to learn more. And I went to college to understand the psychology behind the driver of this madness that I feel, in my opinion, is causing a shift. I don't want you to think I'm talking about everybody on planet Earth. There's 8 billion people or so, probably more. No, I'm not. There are people in this world that are sound mind, reasonable, but then there are other people who have just lost their mind, and they were maybe never like that before. Then all of a sudden, they've become that. That's what I wanted to understand. Because in my job, I thought, A, it could help me better understand my client, maybe grow my network of clients, and B, maybe help me get away from that job and move on to doing something else for myself instead of going there every day and putting up with this toxicity. In addition, it was partly the corporate environment that was toxic. But this video specifically is about the toxic clientele. And let me just explain what I think is driving this. We can blame it on social media. We can blame it on the world as it is today. We can blame it on evil. We can blame it on whatever we want to blame it on. if you follow the money, you'll see that at every hostile encounter, that at every person who seems to have lost their mind, every time somebody jumps over a counter at McDonald's and tries to choke the employee, every time I was confronted at my desk job, a professional career, where somebody threw their fists in my face or somebody threw something on my desk or tried to start a fight with me, for every time we see in the news or on social media a very aggressive fight break out in a public space where somebody is just trying to do their job. Even some famous comedians have talked about it in their videos, saying, just look it up, look at what happens at Starbucks. The things that baristas go through. I mean, it's coffee. Who could be mad at that? That would be like going into an ice cream shop and just start throwing ice cream cones around. It's silly. It's crazy. It's like, what happened? How did we come here? How did we get here? Follow the money. People get upset at Starbucks because their $4, $6, $8 iced latte wasn't made correctly, or the barista took too long, or the foam wasn't done correctly. Follow the money. Follow McDonald's, where somebody jumps over the counter or the outdoor window or sits out there and says unreasonable demanding things at an employee, like, I want more barbecue packets, and they ended up getting a police called on them because they were so unreasonable that they jumped through the drive-thru to get more barbecue sauce. I mean, really, it doesn't make any sense. They ruined their reputation in life because now they have a record because they jumped through a drive-thru for barbecue sauce. It is aggravating when they forget the nuggets. I get it. I had kids. I took them to McDonald's when they were little, so I get it. I had to go in there a couple times. Where's my nuggets? You forgot my nuggets. But I never jumped over the counter. I was never throwing my fist in the girl's face at the checkout lane. We can have aggravations in our life and we can get upset over things, but that doesn't excuse violence. It doesn't excuse the way the world is going with these outright bursts of attacks on people doing their jobs. Follow the money. Then, my job, corporate America. Why were people so violent with me? I had a desk job. I'm sitting at a desk in a professional building. Why would somebody come in throwing their fist at me? Follow the money. People make choices and they decide, they choose to spend money, but then get upset when the money doesn't go as far, doesn't stretch as much, and ends up wasted. But that's nobody's fault but the person who made that choice. It is not the drive-through cashier's fault that you regret buying the nuggets and barbecue sauce. It is not the barista's fault that your foam on your latte wasn't good enough. It is not Walmart employees' fault that the order came to $100 and all you got were a couple of free-range chickens and some side orders of veggies. You make choices. We all do, including myself. And I'm not excluding myself here. We're all human. We're all on the same planet. So imagine if you just took a step back and just reevaluated a second here. You made the choice to pick up that chicken. You made the choice to pick up that latte. You made the choice to buy those nuggets. Now you're aggravated because your money didn't stretch or you feel ripped off. Follow the money. 9 times out of 10 in my day job, when I worked at this job, after I went back to school, I saw it with clarity. I no longer questioned, why are people acting like this? I saw it for what it was. We all have to make adjustments sometimes, and people don't like change. Transitioning is hard for a lot of people. If you're accustomed to a certain way, you're used to a certain way, now you have to switch to something else. Follow the money. One day, I went to the grocery store and a woman around my age, I'm in my 50s, she came barreling out of an aisle. I was walking down the main aisle and she came out of the side aisle, no cart, but she was booking it and running. She nearly knocked me off my feet. I held on to the rack. I turned around and some things came out of my face I didn't even know I had in me to say. It was in the spur of that moment. My adrenaline spiked and ooh, I followed her and she ran out of the store with a bunch of ribeyes and porterhouse steaks. Nobody stopped her. I watched her. She got in her car and took off. Follow the money. The manager came over and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, that woman nearly knocked me down. You have cameras in this store." He said, "It's becoming really bad here. People are literally coming in, grabbing whatever they can and running out the door to a getaway car." That's not the first time I heard that. We had a Macy's here. I used to go shopping at Macy's once in a while. Whenever I got my hair done, I'd swing over to Macy's and poke around. It was like my, decompressing. And one day I went in there and their store is closing up. And I was like, what's going on? Where's my Macy's going? We've lost almost everything as it was, as far as the malls go, the stores go. This was like my last hope of shopping, besides TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Kohl's. And the cashier was very upset. She had worked there for many, many, many years. And she said, "I'm losing my job because we're closing." And I said, "Why on earth are you closing? It's always busy in here. Everybody shops in Macy's. What is going on here? We don't have anywhere else to shop." And she said, "Because of the theft." And I said, "What theft?" She said, "People are running in here, grabbing what they can off the rack and running right out the door to a getaway car." So what they tried to do was they tried to lock those doors down where people were running out. It didn't work. That's why my Macy's closed. That's the truth of it. It's not because we didn't support them in the community. Where they were located in the town, it was about 20 minutes away from me. It's all doctors and nurses. There's a hospital there. So it was not in a community that couldn't afford Macy's. It wasn't because people weren't shopping. It was because of the theft. Follow the money. Today we have new generations coming up. They don't know what we lived through. They don't know our hardships. They don't know what built our endurance and strength and resilience. They don't know about the 70s and 80s like we do, if we lived through them or before. I just saw an interview with a woman who is 102 years old. And just the other day, I talked about this in a video, how I heard stories from my own elders that talked about the shoe rations, because people were so poor and there was literally nothing to have. So they had to ration shoes among food. And this woman said that she remembers as a kid getting a stamp and she could have a pair of shoes every year. And that's what I remember, except when my elders told me the story, they had siblings, so they couldn't get a pair of shoes every year. They could get a pair of shoes one year and then it would alternate to their siblings. Could you imagine today if we had to have shoe rations? I love shoes. I have a closet full of shoes. But could you imagine if things were rationed today? The chaos that would erupt in some places. Maybe not the whole world. Some people have nothing as is in some parts of the world. But imagine where people overspend and have a lot. Imagine the chaos that would erupt. I can't even imagine. People would just be stealing things. If we had to ration anything, follow the money. Meat. This 102-year-old said when she was a kid, they could not get meat. Now, I did know some elderly veterans who told me they got a ration of some sort of meat that they think was horse meat, but they were happy to have it at all. Most of what they ate back then was beans because they couldn't get things. They couldn't get food. Now today, with the steak prices, the chicken prices, everything is high. And you might hear about people aren't even buying that. Now they're going to the dollar package of hot dogs because they can't afford the chicken, they can't afford the beef. But imagine if suddenly there wasn't enough food and we had to ration our food just like they did back then. Could you imagine what the world would be like? I don't want to know. I don't. I've heard the stories from my elders. I don't want to live it, but follow the money. Could I live it? Absolutely. My elders taught me these things. I didn't have the internet. I didn't have Siri. I didn't have, AI to look it up. I couldn't ask the phone, hey, if I'm in the supermarket and there's no meat, what do I do? No, they taught us these things. They passed their wisdom down from generation to generation. Hey, when I was your age, we didn't have meat. Or, hey, when I was your age, we had a stamp or a coupon to get shoes. So just appreciate what you have and appreciate what you have, anything at all. That right there is gone by the wayside. People aren't appreciative. People are entitled. Follow the money. Why are they entitled? Follow the money. I'm not saying evil doesn't play a part in it. I'm just boiling it down to this simple fact. If you follow the money, then you can see it. You can see why people are acting the way they act. There's always been disputes, arguments, fights. But today just hits a little differently. Thanks so much for watching today. Take care.